Well, welcome to LongeTalks. It's an honor to have you here with us. And there is a question that we do always when we invite some people here. And please tell us about yourself, but not yourself while professional, but while a person. So, who is Carrie Bernhardt?
Very grateful to be here and I'm honored and I'm excited too to learn about your work in Brazil and the aging of the people of Brazil. And about me is that my mother and father had two teenage children, and they thought that they were done having children. And then they had a surprise last pregnancy, and that was me, so that my father's hair was always gray. And people would say, oh, old people can't do this, or oh, it's terrible to be old. And I would think, oh no, my dad is old. And so, I did hear it. And so it did shape me to have a little bit more awareness of older. And now I am 56, and I am really, really grateful to have my mother who is 97. And I learned so much from her. And I've been a gerontologist now for 35 years. And it's been, in my opinion, the most rewarding career I could ever have because I am always learning. I don't really think there is such a thing as an expert in aging because aging is just another word for living. And no one is an expert in living, right? We're all learners. So I am learning a lot, and I am grateful to be with other gerontologists.
Oh, it's great, right? So,
Yes.
this is a beautiful area, I used to say. And tell us about your book, JOYSPAN, and the concept, because we use it to listen about lifespan, but what is the difference?
Yes. So I can tell you what the book came from. So for 20 years at least, I worked with people who were aging, who were really suffering, people who had ended up alone without financial resources, people who had been taken advantage of with elder abuse and financial exploitation. And that suffering had a really big impact on me. And like you, as gerontologists, we know that we can't just say, oh, that's just how it is. We know that we can do better, like we can do better as a society. Um, so my observation is that we have focused so much about how long we're going to live longer, live longer. And we call that lifespan, how long we live. And then in the 1980s, we added to the conversation health span. So it wasn't just how long you live, but also living as long as possible in as good of physical and cognitive health as possible. And that's a good step in the right direction. We want, to live a healthy, long life. But here was the problem. I would have patients that lived a long time and they were in pretty good health, but they weren't enjoying their life. And so, as your point about purpose, they were feeling like, they weren't contributing and they weren't growing and they weren't treated in a way that humans should be treated. So I started thinking, I think we're missing something. I think it is not just the length of life and not even just your physical health, but it's also the quality of your life. So joy span refers to well-being in longevity. And so when we think about the word joy, it, at least as I understand it from people like the Dalai Lama and the Archbishop Desmond Tutu, that there is a difference between joy and happiness. And so happy is often dependent on what goes on in your life and your circumstances. But we know that every life has very hard circumstances. If we live, we will lose people we love. We will have health challenges. We will have visual impairment or hearing impairment. There's a lot to life. So, unlike happiness, joy is from the inside out. And so, joy can exist with grief. And that's why I think it's well suited to the process of growing older. Because we're not saying, don't let anything bad happen to you, because that doesn't happen. Haven't known anyone who has made it through a long life who hasn't carried hard things, and no amount even of exercise or sleep or diet or anything prevents the fact that life can be hard. So joy span is defined as well-being in longevity. You can think of it as your quality of life. And it is not just genetics. It is not just, oh, that person is enjoying life at age 95. They're just lucky, or they just have good genes. There is a component of that, of course, genes and luck. But a huge part of it that the research shows us has to do with these little choices that we're making every day. And so my hope in JOYSPAN was to provide research on what these things that we can do to try to fortify our internal strength in order to enjoy the whole ride, whether we have one more day left of life or whether we have 40, 50 more years of life, and none of us know. So if you had to think of JOYSPAN in one word, I think it's quality.
And your work also address the challenges of caring for aging parents. And
Yes.
what do families most need to understand today?
Yes. I love that question. So if you think back to when you were, let's say, 12 years old, when you were 12 years old, you thought, I know everything. And then you get older and you look back and you think, ugh, I thought I knew it all. I didn't know anything. And the same can be true now. So I'm almost 60. I think, oh, I know so much. But the thing is, I don't know what my mom, who is 97, knows, because I haven't lived it. She knows. So if we, as care partners or caregivers to older parents, can take a minute and think, I've got to shut up and start by listening to the older adult who has been here for longer. It's their life. They can decide what they want, even if you don't agree with it. And a lot of times, older adults have better problem solving skills. So there's some very interesting research that talks about the neurological integration between the left and right hemisphere of our brains that has strengthened as a result of a lifetime of problem solving. So older adults have these abilities to solve problems, but younger adults are so quick to come in and say, oh, here, give me your phone, let me do it for you. You don't know, I know. And I fall for it too. So sometimes my mom will say something and then I'll jump right in. I'm like, you know what you should do? And then I think, stop. Listen to what she's going to say. Give it some time. And almost always she comes up with something better than I could come up with because I have not been 70 or 80 or 90, and certainly not 97. So my advice to families who are caregiving, first of all, you're doing incredibly important, incredibly hard work. And I I cheer you and I salute you for the work you're doing. And also remind yourself that you don't know everything and it's okay to be quiet and listen. And there's kind of we need to differentiate between adults who are living with cognitive impairment and adults who are not living with cognitive impairment. So let's start with adults who are not living with cognitive impairment. The majority of older adults don't have cognitive impairment. If your mom is doing something that you don't agree with, it's important to understand it's not just all about safety. So adult children, we think everything is it's not safe. It's not, you shouldn't do that because it's not safe. Safety does matter, but it's not the only thing. On the other end of the continuum, there is also autonomy. That is choosing for yourself what you want to do with your life, even when your adult children don't agree with it. And I know that your listeners are going to say, well, if she falls, then it's going to fall on me. So that's why I have to tell her, you can't do this, or you can't do that. I'm going to, I do understand it and it is complex, but I simply want listeners to recognize that it's more than safety, and it's also older adults do get to choose for themselves what their lives look like. So that's and then now to all of us who have people in our lives who are living with cognitive impairment, dementia or Alzheimer's disease, that is complicated, even more complicated, because of course people still have rights, people still can make decisions, but also with cognitive impairment, it is more difficult. Having said that, recognize that our goal when people live with cognitive impairment is to give as much choice and personhood as we can, because it's not all or nothing. It's not like, oh, you have cognitive impairment, I'm going to start coming in and I decide what you eat, I decide when you sleep, I decide what you wear. Because that's not recognizing the personhood. And so I've had a lot of patients that I've had the privilege of working with, and I know you both have as well, where you can still have JOYSPAN in longevity living with dementia. You can still have moments of where you are present in this moment, where you feel seen and loved, where you're appreciating music and art and food and coffee and dancing and babies and animals. Like there's still so much. And so earlier today, I was at an event and someone came up to me and said, well, it'll be okay, but if I get dementia, just kill me. And I had to stop her and say, I don't think you understand what you're saying, because I would argue that we are more than our bodies. We are more than our perfectly functioning brains. There's more to humanity than that. And so recognizing that we're all gonna die, like that's one thing we can all agree on. Like, yep, 100% we're gonna die, and that is not like a mistake or really even a tragedy, because it's what humans do. And before you die, you'll have challenges. Some of us will be a cognitive impairment, some of us will be other conditions, but elevating the quality of our life while we carry these conditions and enabling that for our loved ones, thinking about things like dignity, thinking about things like maximum autonomy matters. And you'll be so glad after your parent passes away that you took the time and the effort to try to recognize quality of life instead of only thinking about, I know best, I'm going to control you.
It's really true. And I used to say some familiars of my patients that they know about the condition that they have. So I have a patient that say to me sometimes, I'm not stupid. I understand what I have. I know
Yes,
what I have. So
yes,
people needs to understand about it, right?
yes. And we're so much more than our brains. Like,
Yes.
you know, and you probably are like this too. As gerontologists, we go to a lot of funerals, and
Yes,
it's
it's
a
true.
privilege. And I listen to what people talk about at the funerals, and they never talk about, oh, they were rich or they were
No,
powerful. They talk about they had purpose. They like to laugh. They like to dance. They love their kids. Like those things matter, having being able to remember everything perfectly, it's not the most important thing.
yes, it's true. I think they need to feel. They need to feel that they have voice. So, and
Yes,
we will talk now
exactly.
about loneliness because it's a theme that we can how can I relate it to voice, right?
Yeah.
And loneliness has been described to date as a global epidemic. And how does it impact aging in your view?
Yeah, so the research is showing that we're increasingly lonely at all ages, and it's particularly steep with younger adults too. And we know that loneliness has a physiological effect. So they've had a clever study that was showing they equated it to smoking, that being lonely, as defined as wanting more social interaction than you currently have, is the equivalent of smoking 14 cigarettes a day. So we know that humans require other humans. And that is true for people who are introverted as well as people who are extroverted. And with loneliness and how it impacts aging, it's easy to experience loneliness. And I would argue that all of us at certain times will be faced with loneliness, and that we could really take away any shame because it's quite universal. And the best news about loneliness is that we can do something about it, but it requires work on our part. So almost every week I have a patient come to me and say, nobody invites me anywhere. I don't have any things to look forward to. I eat my meals alone after my husband passed away. And the first step is, of course, I listen and think, oh, that it hurts. But then I ask a hard second question. And that question is, tell me about the plans that you have made. Who have you invited over? Tell me about how you call people or write letters and email and text. And do you offer, for example, to drive people to chemotherapy? Do you remember that it's your neighbor's 1 year anniversary of his wife's death? So by this, I'm trying to flip it to say, the only way actually to have a friend is to be a friend. And so it's like, when you go to a gym, you have to lift the weights. We can't do that for you. And you lift a weight and then you don't say, am I strong? You know that you have to keep doing it. And this is the same with loneliness. We know that each of us, need to be the one to think of other people and extend invitations. And you might be thinking, well, I'm sick. I am in a wheelchair. I live alone. How am I supposed to connect with people? Here we'll need to get pretty creative. And so extending small kindnesses and authentic interest in other people. So maybe there is somebody who, helps bring you food. You take an interest in that person and say, gosh, I realize that we haven't introduced ourselves. My name is Carrie. What is your name? Oh, then tomorrow when that person comes back, you could say, hello, Maria. And, every day reaching out. And there's an expression that I use, and I don't know if it's one that in Brazil, but we say you have to kiss a lot of frogs. Do you know that one? There's a fairy tale about a princess, and she kisses the frog, and it's just a frog. Kiss a frog, and then kiss one. Oh, it's a prince. So this is true, that you will reach out to people. So maybe if you had a phone and you would reach out and you think, I haven't talked to this person in 10 years since I retired. I think I'll just, hi, Joe, how are you? I was just thinking about you. Send. Maybe that first one is not interested. But if you keep up to it, everyone's a little bit lonely. And by putting ourselves out there and putting the work in, we're going to help them be less lonely, and we would be less lonely too. And I always think it is giving that is such a nice portal to connection. So if you think about what you have to give, and I have a patient right now that I'm working with, and she is an incredible listener. When she listens to you, you feel so heard and so seen and not judged. And I feel like she loves me. And every time I go to visit her, she lives in a skilled nursing home and she's in bed. There are people gathered around her bed just talking and visiting with her because she's such a good listener. And that gave me good hope that regardless of my physical challenges or even cognitive challenges, the fact that I could work on listening throughout life as a way to connect with the other people, but also as a way to give. Like, you always have something to give.
Oh, I want an observation. I love how you speak of your mom, your mother. You speak with authority and experience about the age process, because your experience this with your mother is very important. And so I love this. It's very, very interesting, because not only theory, this formation, education, but you love your work. But you love your work because your experience with your mother, you live it. Yes. It's very important for your past. The concept is for, because you are authority, because you live it.
Oh, well, thank you. And I know that's the case with both of you as well about living the experience. And I have had a real privilege of watching and walking with thousands of older people. And when you learn from people who are ahead of you, you can see, oh, I see that person is choosing, for example, to complain about everything. That person is always saying, I wish I was young. I'm mad that this happened to me. And you can watch and think, I hope for my path, I will make some different choices. And so for my mom, when I would learn something, either from watching or from the academic research that we share, I would share it with her. And I would say, gosh, Mom, did you know that actually the way the brain works is that if we really focus on gratitude, for example, what is right instead of what is wrong, it will change our experience because our brain sees what we call to.
Oh my God. It was perfect, right?
Yeah.
It's really true.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we are going to the final, but it was interesting to listen you because speak we spoke about some points that are really important about gratitude. Not only we don't need to take care just only about our mental health or physical health, but we need to understand that the life is more than this, and you bring us about it. It's so important, and I think we think that people need to understand about it. And I have one more question. Okay, if you could change just one belief about aging in the world, what should it be?
It would be the belief that the goal is to stay young. We don't have to stay young. We could instead grow old, and we can reclaim the word old, right? So we can be beautiful and funny and stylish and deep and fun and old. So it is a lie that if you'll just stay young, just stay young. No, like grow old in a way that makes young people want to be older because it, and just to don't fall for it. Like don't let this uh, thing about everything has to be young, young, young. Oh, you don't look old. Oh, is that like we don't have to fall for that. That's a business. That's a business that is telling us that it's ugly and awful and to grow old. And we can just say, I hear you saying that. I reject that. And we used to say that, oh, women can't run businesses, women can't be leaders. And now we laugh. If only women were the leaders of everything, we would be in a much better place. So it's the same way. Like I hope that we look back and think, we every day in the US, 10,000 more people are turning 65, and that can be a great thing. And in your country, your population skews a little bit younger, and now you're coming into it. I think like Brazil could lead the way because the people of Brazil have such um, like a love of life and love of learning. I think we could learn so much from Brazil on how to age. And, I don't think the United States, I think to me, we would probably be in last place. But I think we can look to places like Japan and some places, you know, like in Mexico. And when I was in Rome recently, and we had people of all ages out gathered every night, enjoying one another and embracing their age. And I thought, this is where it's at. And this whole thing about, you know, stay young forever, that is not right.
Bye
Very
bye.
much. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Bye bye.